Hello, everyone. Nightmare here, and this is Whale FM Makersplace Edition. In this show, we talk about everything and anything art and crypto in the NFT scene with designers and creators alike, otherwise known as non fungible tokens. My very special guest today is David Maisel, co founder and former CEO of Marvel Studios, who now helms Mythos Studios with entertainment mogul Scooter Braun. After having the vision to push Marvel to self finance and produce their own cinematic universe, David executive produced box office smashes such as The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, and Captain America the First Avenger, ultimately helping architect the sale of Marvel to Disney and the continuation of the franchise we love. Post Marvel, David went on to have continued success with projects including the Angry Birds movie, which grossed a measly $350 million worldwide. Now with Mythos Studios, David looks to bring the robust Aspen Comics universe to life. David, so psyched to have you with us here today.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Before we go any further, and certainly there's a lot of accolades I had to throw in there just to get the intro out, but could you give us just a brief background on yourself to get everyone grounded in who you are and what you're about?
Sure. And it's actually really related to what we're doing with Aspen Comics and with this specific drop, because my career has really been a combination of three of my loves: entertainment, movies, comics, and business, making some money. And I've been fortunate to be able to combine all three, and I realize how lucky I've been. And that culminated after years of study and working in different entertainment companies like the Walt Disney Company and Creative Artists Agency, and what is now Endeavor William Morris. Me going to Marvel in the early 2000s with the idea that Marvel should not license its movies but create its own movie studio, and connect all the characters together and enjoy all the creative and financial benefits of that. It seems so obvious now, but at the time it really wasn't. Nobody really talked about universes. No one but the big movie studios would make movies at all, let alone movies of over $100 million. So it was really something that took a lot of time, persistence, and effort to convince my board and others to allow me to create this studio, raise $525 million, put together a team, and launch with Iron Man in 2008. And it's sort of been another thread in my career where I've tried to find things within the entertainment industry that were inefficient, where I could be an entrepreneur, and Marvel was an undervalued asset at the time, especially in Hollywood. And it was great fun to be able to go there and lay the groundwork and found and lead Marvel Studios. I sold it to my ex-boss, Bob Iger at Disney, in 2010, and Kevin Mayer, who I had worked with in the 90s. And so it was a great place to put Marvel, and obviously things have worked out really well. My love of comics has continued, and I'm a huge comic book collector and a huge comic book art collector, especially Iron Man and this artist, Michael Turner. So when I decided to get back into the studio game in a big way and partnered up with Scooter Braun, we decided to make different types of comic movies. And I thought, wow, Michael Turner stuff would be fantastic. James Cameron also thought the same thing. He had the rights for Fathom for many, many years. But we were able to get the rights for Fathom and Soulfire and all of Michael Turner's other creations, along with Aspen Comics that he started in Culver City. And so it's really out of this love of Michael's art and the desire to bring it to the world. And then we saw this NFT avenue as yet another avenue to bring Michael's art to the world. And this is our first way of doing that with this drop that we really announced the details of today.
Well, an incredible resume and obviously a passion for the subject matter, and that definitely makes a difference in its success, I'm sure. Just to rewind a little bit, what inspired you to really push Marvel to move away from being a licensing shop to producing their own stuff?
It was so many reasons. I mean, number one, as a fan, I wasn't happy with all the movies that were being made.
Right.
There were some good ones and some not so good ones made by the various studios, not without naming names. So there was that. It also was, as a fan of Marvel, I realized how connected the universe was. And selling to all these different studios meant that Sony would do their Spider-Man movies and Fox would do their X-Men movies. Universal would do the Hulk, Lionsgate, Black Widow, but they would never be connected on the screen together. The only way that could ever happen, the only way there could be a Marvel Cinematic Universe was if we got all the rights back and made the movies ourselves, or sold all the rights to one studio. So I realized, hey, it's much better to see all the characters on screen together and make everything a sequel to the film beforehand than to have all these individual one-off movies. And then third, I just thought a great financial opportunity. The whole company of Marvel was worth only 200 million at the time, and on the back of an envelope, when I estimated what the value of our own studio would be if we were able to pull off some level of performance like the X-Men and Spider-Man films, it was in the billions of dollars. So it was such a different multiple upside, and thank God we were able to pull that off. We got to value Marvel from 200 million when I joined to an over $4 billion sale to Disney.
Right.
Really a combination of creative fandom. Like, it would be so cool to see Iron Man and Captain America together on the same screen, and Thor. And the only way to do that would be to have our own studio, combined with a healthy entrepreneurial spirit of, hey, this is a great opportunity.
I think a lot of people attribute to the success of Marvel to that genuine fandom that a lot of the people involved with it have. So
That
there's
was,
a lot of there's a lot of
exactly.
care, right?
Yeah, it was me. In fact, the team was very small. It was me, and there was this kid called Kevin Feige, who I promoted to president of production. And the two of us had never made a movie before. We were sort of, looking back at it, naive and crazy at the time. And we had a board of people that were very old and traditional. And for some reason, they trusted us. And thank God, with the keys to the studio. And we made Iron Man. We made plenty of mistakes, but we loved the material. And so did Robert Downey and Jon Favreau. So we just had a great team that really cared about doing something different. And that meant everything, because it isn't easy ever to do stuff like that. And, I think we all would have done it for free. It was nice that there was a business angle to it that worked out, but it all came out of love of the comics and wanting to see the real Tony Stark on screen and see all these characters together. And the same thing here with this. Yes, it's a business, but Michael Turner was such a fantastic person and great artist, and so unique, that it's nice to add energy and life and bring more people into his circle.
Right. So tell me about Mythos Studios.
Yeah.
You established this and with the objective of continuing something like what you had done at Marvel, or did that just fall into your lap and kind
No,
of make sense?
yeah, no, I took a sabbatical for a while after selling Marvel. I'd worked really hard and learned animation with the Angry Birds movie, which was a similar model. Marvel, we had control of our films. Angry Birds, the company that owns Angry Birds.
Right. Is it true that is it true that the inspiration for that was that you saw your mother playing it?
Absolutely. It was like 2011, and I figured if she was into this thing, I better look at it, and
Right.
flew to Finland like 2 days later to meet with the father and son who created the game. And they were about to license the movie, and long story short, convinced them to give me 75 million from their bank account from the game, and let's make the movie ourselves. We don't need a studio. And that worked out real well for them. They were able to pull off an IPO a few years later. But 3 years ago, I decided I love movies. I want to get back in the game, but I wanted to find stuff that I was passionate about that I thought was different. I didn't want to compete against my babies at Marvel, and something that I thought could get the creative community energized. And loving comics, I decided Michael's heroes, they're primarily female heroes. They're different than what's going on with Marvel and DC. They're not necessarily wearing capes. They're about all these different groups sharing the world. Aspen Matthews, the star of Fathom, is this really smart marine biologist who discovers that she's from a race that evolved into the oceans. Soulfire, you're seeing the picture there, is a group of people who evolved into magical abilities. And they're all sharing this earth with humans. And so it's a great, beautiful art and beautiful stories. And whether it's animated or live action, I thought it'd be cool that one artist's vision connects the visual tissue of the films and TV shows. And so that was the spirit of this. And thank God I knew the creators. I knew the owners of Aspen, because Michael Turner tragically passed away 12 years ago from cancer at a young age. But he left the company to his two best friends who were running it with him, Frank and Peter. And I knew them from collecting Michael's art at Comic-Con. And so they got excited, and we teamed up. And we've been working the past couple of years really hard at developing hopefully future films and TV shows about Fathom and the other properties.
Very cool. And for anyone that's in the audience, they may not be familiar, I would love if you could just give a brief highlight on two of the biggest properties, right? Fathom and Soulfire. I think I read that you're working on doing some different cool things with both of them. And full disclosure here, I was not that familiar myself, but I went down to my local comic shop. Shout out to That's Entertainment, and I've plowed through about 5 issues, 4 issues of Fathom and 1 issue of Soulfire. So made sure I got entrenched, and now I definitely have a crush on Aspen, like the rest of the world, I'm sure.
If you enjoy the club on that.
Yeah, no, but it's funny. I had asked one of the employees who didn't look that tenured there, and I said, "Hey, where can I find this?" And they were like, "I have no idea." They said, "Ask so and so. You know, they're more embedded in the comics." And the minute I said the titles, his eyes lit up. So, let me show you where we have our our indie publishers and our like collector's editions. And so I have a big. This stack here is from 2005.
Oh, good. That's the original volume, which is, I think, one that before Michael passed away, that he actually drew most of that volume and wrote it.
Very cool.
And it's, you're hitting on a good point, which is really hard for independent comic book publishers to get distribution in comic book stores, because Marvel and DC are like Coke and Pepsi. So when Fathom came out in 1998, it was the #1 comic in the entire country, above every Marvel and DC title, which is a huge accomplishment for an independent comic. By far. And that's when I got turned on to it. I mean, it was bigger than Iron Man and Avengers and X-Men. And it's been run continuously since. And we're doing now a lot of the volumes. For example, the next volume will be through Kickstarter, starting in about a few weeks. And then it comes to the stores. But it was the #1 comic of the year, which is so rare. And the covers to Fathom #1 were just so beautiful. In fact, all Michael's covers. So you'll see that the centerpiece of our NFT is what people think is the most beautiful, iconic cover that he ever did. But it's a story, like I said, of a young marine biologist, Aspen Matthews, who's like 21. And she discovers that she was part of this underwater society. It's very different than Aquaman and Namor. You're seeing the covers there. You can see how you can identify Michael's line work so tremendously. And I think the world fell in love with this artist and his unique line work and his unique color schemes pretty quickly. Because Michael was then also hired by DC to do Batman and Superman, and he introduced him to Supergirl. He did the famous Civil War covers for Marvel. He could pick what he wanted to do. And then he was smart enough as a businessman and as an artist to want to control his destiny. So very similar to what he did at Marvel. And he started his own comic book company, Aspen Comics, which is in Culver City, and brought Fathom with him, and then also launched Soulfire and Ecos and some other properties before he passed away.
Yeah, very cool. And Michael became kind of known for making special edition covers and covers that would end up being collectibles, right? So it's ironic here we are talking about NFTs and really people wanting to have a part of history immortalized on the blockchain, but talk about an iconic illustrator and comic designer.
Exactly, and that's actually one of the other reasons. It's a good point of why we chose Michael Turner and Aspen Comics at Mythos Studios. His art, when you look at it, it's universally beautiful. Like, there's a lot of comic book art that I love that my mom or my girlfriend doesn't like at all, because it's just very much about comics. Michael's art, almost everyone I've ever shown it to thinks it's beautiful, as you can see from this picture here. So the art, he was doing art. It wasn't just for comics, and he spent a lot of time on a cover like you're seeing, more so than most people would spend on a comic book cover, because he really felt like he was creating art. It wasn't just for that specific comic in that specific year. It's something that we really hope that as we bring Michael's art to a broader group, the comic collectors and the Aspen fans obviously will love it, but the broader art collector group, as well as the collectible group, will find it of interest as well.
Right. I mean, 30 titles, 8 million books, and published in 27 countries is no small feat for an independent comic.
Exactly.
So certainly there's a robust fan base there, but like I said, I'm 5 issues deep and I'm pretty enthralled. So it's great stuff. Soulfire is a bit more like on a mystical, magical kind of an ensemble thing.
Yes.
Whereas Fathom reminds me of more traditional scaling, heroines and heroes with Canon and Aspen and the whole gang. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
There you can see Grace with the wings. She's 2,000 years old in this magical creature, but she's seen everything. It's a bit hard-hearted. Aspen is much more fun-loving, and the two have never been together yet in comics. But we're looking forward to, in comics and in entertainment, to, what's nice is all these rights are under one roof, just like at Marvel. So we might launch with a Fathom movie or TV show, but we'll eventually have Soulfire and then have them all exist and have integrated films, just like you're seeing with Marvel.
Right. And Michael's work, it's interesting that, he really established and is responsible for the popularity of Witchblade, because I can certainly see that in a lot of the artwork. I can see Witchblade there for sure.
Yeah, that was his first big comic, that Top Cow. He started off just, Michael he went to Comic-Con and pitched the owners of Top Cow, and they didn't want to hire him. And then he forced his way in and worked his way up, and he got Witchblade, and that sort of made his name. And then, like I said, did some iconic work for DC and Marvel as he was starting Fathom.
For sure. And you talked about kind of the two properties coexisting under the same umbrella at some point, or cross-pollinating. Is there plans for a grander kind of equivalent to the cinematic universe for Marvel? So, right, the Mythoverse or some collective umbrella that you guys could build?
Yeah, we that's absolutely the dream. We actually call it the Turnerverse. And it's absolutely the dream to bring all these creations together. Michael once drew Fathom Soulfire and this creature-based comic called Ecos all on the same page. It's a beautiful picture. But yeah, that would be the dream, to bring all these characters together. I love doing it at Marvel, and there's not many other natural universes, but this one really is.
And you mentioned TV show or animated. Is that what is in the works for these properties?
Yeah, we're developing everything right now, film and TV shows, and some live action, some animated. So we're pushing forward on all the different avenues right now, and it's nothing can be guaranteed about what's going to happen. It never can, but we spent a couple of years and a lot of money developing Fathom and Soulfire right now for their next projects.
And so I read about some other, and I'm not certain if these are brand new properties you guys are developing with Cupid, with Justin Bieber. Is that a brand new IP?
The other half of Mythos, half of it's Michael Turner and the Turnerverse, and the other half is Greek and Roman mythology, another love of mine. And we're going to launch that with a Cupid film, and which oddly enough, even though Cupid's so famous, there's never been a movie that went into his life and his interesting family and everything else. And Justin is going to do his first major acting gig playing Cupid, which just like Robert Downey as Tony Stark, it almost feels too good to be true. There's a lot of parallels between the real life person and the character. Right.
And it was interesting reading it, because when I hear Cupid, it's synonymous to me with something cutesy, or, like the kind of cherubish kind of image of someone with a bow and arrow and hearts. And this is kind of like an intricate look into the mindset of everything that they would go through and some of the trials and tribulations. So it sounded very intriguing.
No, you hit it right on the spot. I think to find opportunities, in Hollywood, especially as an entrepreneur, you have to find things that people miss. And a lot of people ask me, why did the town miss Iron Man? Why did Warner Brothers have the rights for so many years and decide it wasn't worth making? And the best answer I can have is people only saw the suit of armor. They didn't see the man inside the suit, Tony Stark. And as a fan, we knew how cool Tony Stark was as a character. And without that, you don't really get what the movie can be. The same thing with Cupid. I was asking myself, why has no one ever made a movie about Cupid, this 100% brand awareness around the entire world? And I think it's because people are used to the Hallmark card, like you said, cutesy Cupid for Valentine's Day.
Right.
To look at mythology, he's got an intricate life with his mother is the goddess of beauty, Venus. His father is the god of war. They're split apart. They're fighting all the time. He's in the middle. He has to decide what to do with his life. He has this bow and arrow that can cause people to do all these things. Has to decide, is he going to get married? Is he going to focus on what's he going to be, and his friendship with other characters. So it's this really cool story and entertaining story, which will be hopefully an entryway into a whole universe of mythology movies called the Mythoverse. So we have these two exciting sides to the business, and that's all we're focusing on. Very focused on Michael Turner and the Turnerverse, and Fathom, and Soulfire, and the other side is the mythology universe with Cupid.
Very cool. And who knows, at some point we may see those two universes clash or come together, right? It's possible.
Well,
Anything's possible.
The reason we called it Mythos is Marvel essentially in comics are the mythology of our day today,
Right.
and so they're all related in the sense of being modern philosophy, mythology, and classic mythology.
100%. So a lot of cool stuff in the works, a lot of cool different mediums that you're exploring. Obviously, Fathom is culturally significant, especially to the collectors, but also because of what it talks about, right? Fathom leans heavily on kind of a environmental message, preserving the ocean, climate change, why that's important, and the different impacts and how that affects the world. And it's certainly a very relevant message today and right now.
I'm glad you said that. Michael was ahead of his time, not just in having female heroes with Aspen here and Grace and Soulfire, but also in those kinds of themes. There's the Fathom shows the beauty of the ocean in a way that I don't think any entertainment ever has, and we tend to continue that with film and TV. And it also shows the risks of the ocean, like you said, and he was writing about that 15, 20 years ago, with 70% of the earth is water, and he actually jokes that maybe it should be planet water rather than planet Earth.
Right.
So there's a lot of really timely themes, and then there's the themes of division and of sharing this Earth among different groups, which his universe really, like I mentioned, leads to. So there's some really weighty, good themes that hopefully can be told in an entertaining way. And Michael was an incredible one-of-one artist, but he also was a great creator. And he was ahead of his time on both those fronts.
Definitely, I agree 100%. So with all these different, possible avenues where we'll be seeing these properties emerge next, why NFTs? What drew you to the NFT space?
A couple things. The first thing is it just seemed like an amazing. I'm a collector myself, and so I understood it, and I thought this is an amazing way to get the word out about Michael. And it could be early, right? Because this art can be worth more money after the films. And it's like, I wish I was smart enough to buy Iron Man art before I made the Iron Man movie.
Right.
A lot of other people wish the same thing. But this new NFT structure where there's a participation going forward, so everybody wins with appreciation, sort of helps compensate for that. And we want to get this stuff out to people. And just like this forum today with you and you getting turned on to it, and you multiply that by so many people, that's one of the reasons of doing this. Really, love what I did at Marvel, and I love the Michael Turner stuff. It's such a pleasure when people are talking about Thanos and about, minor characters and in the Marvel universe and from the comic point of view. And I see people talking about them on the street. It's just like that was a dream for Kevin Feige and I, that people would be into the Marvel stuff as they are now. And it's the same dream with the Michael Turner stuff. And I think this is a great avenue to get people turned on to Michael's art and hopefully get them into the comics and feel like they're part of the journey that we're on. You're going to see when we get into NFT, we're really making our one-of-one something where it's NFTs and experiences so that the people feel like they're part of this Mythos Studios, Aspen Comics, Fathom journey.
An amazing synergy there with kind of his vision, what these comics mean to people and what the opportunity of the platform of NFTs provides. So I think it's a perfect fit and makes great sense. Cool. I wanted to talk a little bit about your drop. So the drop is on Makersplace tomorrow, May 20th at 3:30 p.m. PST. It's going to go live for the auction, and the highlight item is the Fathom No.1 cover, 1/1. So whoever scoops this will have the singular edition of the original cover. Is that correct?
Yeah, and your question about what turned me on to this is when I read about the Beeple thing, and I realized, and I got smarter about this, I realized, my God, I collect comics and I collect comic art. And there was never a way to just be the only one of one. I'd like to own one of one of something, right? And there's no way to do that with a comic book, right? There's limited numbers of comic books, but in different grades, but you never really have just the only one of something. And so this really is, as a one of one, the chance for the first time for someone to really own a comic as a one of one. And so we wanted to choose, Michael did 4 covers for Fathom 1. This is what's called cover C, and you can see it there. Just thought it was the most, universally beautiful of his covers and so iconic. In fact, behind me, you can see a rendition that Alex Ross, who's a really famous comic book painter, did of that cover in honor of when Michael passed away. And he reimagined it and made a very limited set of paintings about it. So we decided to make that the centerpiece of the one of one. And then in addition, I wanted to make it really compelling for the person. So I own the original line art. So for every comic book, first the artist like Michael does his pencils and it's inked and then it's colored. And so his original line art, when you work for a comic book company, the artist keeps that in addition to their pay. So that original line art is a one of one in real life. And I have that in my personal collection. So we're making an NFT of that as well. So the person will have the color cover that was published. They'll also have a separate NFT of the line art, which is incredibly beautiful. And in fact, I have it here, the actual paper one. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's pretty big. So if the comic is this size in real life, let me get back here so you guys can see. And then here's the line art that's tied to it, which is on this paper. And it's really beautiful. And that's for every cover, there's one of these. Really hard to find them, obviously, especially if you go back to like the Jack Kirby stuff and so on. And you have to keep them in good shape. But there's a healthy market for these that are in the real world auction world, in addition to comic books. So the NFT one of one collector here will get the color cover, we'll get the line art, and then we put together a cool 5-second animated fade that connects the line art to the color cover. Again, a separate NFT, so that you can show yourself and your friends how that actually happens and is connected together.
Wow, that's very cool.
And you can probably hear, but it's got really beautiful ocean sounds in the background. So those are 3 separate art pieces of NFTs. And then we wanted to make the person feel part of the family. So we created 2 unique experiences. Again, separate NFTs. So these will all be resellable separately if so desired. One is the Mythos Studios Fathom experience. So it will be a sneak peek video Zoom with me and with the other producers of the Fathom Entertainment. And we'll give a sneak peek of all the development that we've been doing in the past couple of years, artistically, picture-wise, design-wise, teasers, all that stuff. Just really bring you under the hood and make you feel part of the Mythos Studios team and understand what we're doing with the Fathom project. And then so that's going to be a really cool sort of entertainment experience. And then the 5th NFT, the second experience, is an Aspen Comics experience, where you'll have a private Zoom with the co-founders of Aspen Comics with Michael, Frank and Peter, get a sneak peek of the next volume of Fathom that's being created right now, which is going to be very exciting because it's going to lead into a whole bunch of future things. And then also get themselves or somebody they select, get their likeness drawn in the actual next volume of Fathom Comics. So we thought having those 2 experiences, you feel really part of things. And we can't make promises. Those are what definitely are in the experiences, but the intent is to have perhaps add-ons added to these experiences as both the comics and the entertainment progresses, so they could be sort of living NFTs to some degree. So I wanted to make it, and we wanted to make it incredibly a unique offering, where it's the first comic book, it's the first authorized comic book cover ever sent off as an NFT. I was also co-CEO of Marvel Comics, and we own the IP, say for example, of Iron Man, but the artists own the original art that they did. So it's hard to combine those 2 things. We're lucky that we're an artist-created company, and we own the IP and the art. Michael left all the art to his friends, and I own a lot of it. It's my personal collection. So we're able to bring it all together for the collector and have the first authorized iconic comic book NFT ever. And then there's this beautiful art that's tied to it. and keeping it alive with these experiences, and developing it hopefully for a lot of future entertainment events. So bringing all that stuff together, we wanted to create this one of one, which is really 5 NFTs that make it really compelling for the collector.
When you said you get your likeness drawn into it and published, my hype level went through the roof. I'm over here trying to calm myself down. That's really dream stuff for any comic collector or anyone into this mythos or into comics in general. So an incredible interactive experience.
Well, yeah, Beeple inspired me when I saw him interviewed, and he said he works hard at making sure that the people who collect his art, that he's working on their behalf going forward. And we're obviously doing that already, trying to make film and TV shows and cool comics. But I was inspired by that, by saying, let me take it a step further. I want to make the person feel like they're part of our team, essentially. And they can really see what we're doing with the movie and the comics, and have fun with it as well.
Right, and obviously with your track record and this incredible IP, this is early, right? So whoever gets in on this and is able to take part is going to do it before the hysteria hits and before this really hits the critical mass that we're going to see going forward once you start releasing this stuff and more people find out about Michael's incredible work.
That's the dream. And like I said, I can't guarantee anything in this world, but I've been very lucky that everything I've developed has become hit the screens, and we're working really hard and putting our names and our wallets behind it. So we're doing our best, and that's the dream here, to
Right.
to really have this be something that everyone really enjoys for so many different reasons going forward, not just the day of the auction.
Right. Well, I think you can tell from the authenticity that this is likely to succeed in the vein that you're talking about. So I have high confidence in that.
Cool.
And then also it looks like there's some variants that you had done. I believe there's a color scheme that was remastered by his best friend and co-owner of Aspen, correct?
Exactly. So we have one limited, which is edition of 10. And we asked Peter Steigerwald, who was Michael's one of his best friends and a co-founder of Aspen Comics, to recolor the line art and do his version for 2021. It took him 6 hours, but we condensed it to 30 seconds and created this really cool digital animation that shows the hand of the artist, Peter's hand, as he colors his new version of reimagined Fathom Cover C. And it comes with a beautiful soundtrack as well, with ocean and whale sounds, which might not be as apparent here. But it's really cool to watch, and it's almost meditative to see how it gets colored in. And so we're going to have a limited edition of 10 of those. We priced it at $1,998 because 1998 was the year that Fathom was launched. So that seemed like the perfect number. And whoever gets the 10th one, which will be auctioned, will also get a separate NFT of the finished reimagined cover that you see at the end of the animation. So that person will get actually a one of one with that color cover reimagined by Peter. And again, I wanted the Michael Turner stuff. Is so special and iconic. We keep that at the one of one level. And that's, I think, the idea going forward. But we thought it'd be nice as a limited, given Peter also did the color, by the way, for Civil War, for Batman versus Superman. He's one of the best in the industry. But he also knew Michael and started the company with him. So it's cool to see his reimagining of something that he thought Michael would like if they were working together today on that cover. And then the art itself. I was inspired by a Picasso show where I saw Picasso painted in real time on TV back in like the 40s, and you saw how he did something in his brushstrokes. So I thought that'd be a cool way to show Peter's art.
Definitely, and Peter, just for everyone that doesn't know, is renowned as a colorist. He's super sought after. So that's an incredible piece for this NFT.
Yeah, it's awesome. He did a great job.
And then you have some open editions as well, right?
Yep, we wanted to have some lower price point things, 2 of them for our fans who might not be able to afford the one of one or the limited. So we put together a reimagined set of Michael drawings here to honor his love of the earth and the ocean and the climate issues, and to have a little fun with one of his favorite sayings, which was, like I mentioned, really it should be planet water instead of planet earth, since water is 70 or 80% of the surface of the earth. So there you see Aspen Matthews looking down at the earth, and his Michael's favorite saying about planet Earth or planet water, it's our one home. and that's going to be priced at $500. And then for a little bit cheaper price point, we had developed this Fathom animated logo for the NFT teaser, and we plan on using this or something close to it, inspired by this, eventually in the entertainment. So we thought we'd put it out as an NFT at $300, and it also has some nice ocean sounds in the background, and it plays on a loop.
Very cool. And if I understand correctly, part of the sales will go to benefit two of Michael's favorite charities, American Cancer Society and Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Yep.
And then also very cool that, Fathom is known for its environmental theme, water conservation, global warming and taking care of the planet. So with the deliberations right now about NFTs and the carbon footprint with the blockchain, a portion of the proceeds will also be going to Oceana, which was a charity near and dear to Michael's heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have amazing advisors that are marine biologists. Dr. Ayanna Johnson, who you might have seen on the recent PBS show about Greta Thunberg. She's our advisor on marine biology issues, and we're taking that really, really seriously in the climate issues of the ocean, like we said. And I'm hoping that the Fathom entertainment, if people understand something and they see how beautiful it is, even the poster with the dolphins that we're doing as the one of one, anything like that causes people to care more about the issue. It feels more personal, and hopefully makes some progress in dealing with it. So there's a sincere element here to try to get the beauty of the ocean and these issues out to people as much as possible. And this poster, I think, is one of the most beautiful ways to do it.
Definitely. And I love that how authentically it actually ties to what Michael cared about and obviously what his IP stands for. So I thought that was very cool that was part of it as well.
Great.
Are there other NFTs that you have planned for the future? Is this your first foray into it, or are you dipping your toe in the water? What's the plans?
We've been so focused on this over, and figuring out all the different elements. You can see we put a lot of thought into it. It would have been easy to just put out the art as the one of one rather than the 5 NFTs, but really, really have been focusing on what can we do here that makes this unique and special. I mean, it's unique enough that it's the first comic book cover ever, but I really wanted this to be, with everything that's happening in the world and so much volume going on in the NFT marketplace, there hasn't been a lot of iconic work brought to NFT space yet. So I wanted to, like I did with Marvel and other things, we wanted to rethink what's the best way to do it. And that's why, to answer your question, we put so much time right now on this. So we want to, hopefully it goes as well as possible. And then we'll think through the best way to have a creative drops going forward for the collector base. We're going to always keep it very exclusive. I think similar types of one of ones would be the idea, assuming everything goes the way we think it will, because I think it merits that as a piece of art. And try to have this line art and the color covers, if we're able to pull together that set of things so that a collector really has a set of things that make this so unique and the right kind of experiences. But right now we've been so focused just in this one, we don't have specific plans for the next ones, but we do want to make the market work here so that it feels very special for people to get a Michael Turner cover, whether it's the color cover or the line art or the fades, and then have nice reimagined work done by various famous artists like Peter honoring Michael as well.
Super excited to hear that. And, as I'm sure you've seen with some of your research on the NFT landscape, it really allows for a whole different avenue of fan interaction directly with properties and IPs. Yeah. And so that's part of the beauty of it. Like you talked about, this can be a continuation afterwards, right? Where these people that want to be a part and have staked their claim as, in their fandom here and want to show their support can continue to be part of this moving forward. And so NFTs allows for some really cool stuff for sure.
Yeah, these people will be partnering with us, right? And so if what the funds that we're raising, all of this sort of helps. It's not, we're a private company, and so it all helps. It's expensive to play in the big leagues against the Disneys and the Sonys and and the Viacoms and the Warner Brothers and so on. So it all really helps. It's a really nice combination of factors like we talked about. And as you can tell, there's a real love of it. I love bringing things that, like yourself, people might not be aware of it, and they look at it. So many people didn't know who Iron Man was. People thought I was making a movie about a triathlon. And so it was fun now that everyone knows Tony Stark and Iron Man and all these characters. So it's such a blast to bring something less discovered to the world. That's so beautiful once people see it. You don't really have to convince them at all beyond looking at it. But then I love, when I worked at Disney, I learned that you want to go to the theme park and constantly be surprised with new things, to get to fall in love with something. And that's why we use that spirit with this NFT drop. And especially with the 1 of 1 to give you more than you might have even asked for, to make it just feel so unique and special.
Very cool. And the drop page is live on Makersplace. We'll provide the links to everyone in our community, along with everywhere that this video is being simulcast, so people can be ready for tomorrow. There may be, I'm not sure if anything is accepting offers right now. That may be the case. So people will definitely want to check it out early.
We go live with offers at 3:30 tomorrow. And
okay.
Then close at 5 p.m. on Friday.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll be doing various things between now and then.
Yeah, and you have some interesting mechanics. Like I think there's a slowdown on the open editions once it hits 35. There's also, you talked about the 10th purchase of the 10 limited editions will get an additional NFT. So very interesting to see how that plays out. Some of the different gamification there, but a lot of thought, like you said, and very well put together. It certainly is impressive and authentic, which makes a big difference when people enter this space.
No, and I appreciate you and everyone getting the word out, because this is something that I think really is attractive for hopefully everyone that's involved with NFTs and into art and into comics. So as much as we can get the word out, it's fantastic.
Most definitely, we will do our part. Although, I'm half like I need to keep these people at bay so that my bids don't get outbid. But we will see. We will definitely spread the word. So before I let you go, we definitely have some questions from the audience I would love to get to. If you have a couple of minutes.
Okay. The only thing I can't answer is secrets about the future of Marvel films.
Yeah, you know what? We'll try to squash those when we see them. What are some other notable comics that you have collected? What are some of your favorites?
I got to tell you, Marvel-wise, it was Civil War. We had a limited series that became our biggest series of the decade, and obviously the inspiration for the movie Civil War. But the idea of Iron Man and Captain America going against each other just was so cool. And honestly, Michael, doing the covers, the art and the story were amazing. And so that was my favorite Marvel comic by far. When I grew up, it was Iron Man. I think as a young boy growing up, I wanted to be Tony Stark, like a lot of young men. And it was just such a cool character that I was so excited that could be our first film, and as was Kevin. We were so happy when the rights came back for Iron Man, so we could launch with that. We didn't know for many years whether we'd be able to or not. And then we were so happy that Tony Stark, Robert Downey, agreed to be him. Yeah, those were my favorite comics in the Marvel realm. I'm also just a comic fan, so as you know from the Aspen comics, I really fell in love with everything that Michael did, and I started collecting it. In fact, I can show the group here real quick. This is the original Michael Turner artwork for the Civil War #1 cover. So you can see, once you get into Michael, you can tell his lines. You can tell that that's his Captain America and Wolverine and Iron Man the same way you can tell his Aspen. And I think this is probably one of the most beautiful covers ever done in comics in general, especially for Marvel. And maybe one day in the future, we'll be able to bring that to the NFT marketplace. But obviously that would have to be in agreement with Marvel. But I just wanted to show that because that was something as a collector, as the Fathom cover that we're NFT now and line art that I have, that's something I spent years and years trying to find and locate around this world, and as a collector, and so it's fun to bring it to people. I'm a DC fan too, and I always loved Green Lantern growing up. Something about that ring.
Very cool. Very cool. Someone asked, what is it like to work with so many ultra creative personalities? Do you find it's a clash or you can work well together and have synergies?
I wish I could say it always works well together, but there's inherently sometimes clashes too, and that's part of the creative process. We try to create safe rooms so everyone can talk about their ideas without getting criticized or taken down or whatever else it might be. But you have to learn to be collaborative in the entertainment business. And we it's just a joy when you get people that are really into your projects. I mean, Robert Downey was so into being Iron Man that he came in and did a video audition because I had to convince Kevin and I had to convince our board to hire Robert, who had been through some personal difficulties, as most people are aware. And he came in and did a video audition, which he hadn't done for many years, and he just killed it. He used to come into our offices and sit in a cubicle, just like help out and work. And when you find people that are so into the projects and they're into it as much as you are, it makes it a joy, and then you get the best out of everybody. Iron Man needed Robert's genius and his improvising. It needed Jon Favreau's directing abilities to get the best out of Gwyneth and Robert, and not just the action scenes, but the scenes in the workshop, in the kitchen, in the cave, and so on. And it needed us as producers to tie everything together. So yeah, you have to find the right people and create an environment to get the best out of them. At the same time, you have to keep your hand on the rudder. These are expensive projects to get them made and hopefully connect them all together. And the Marvel Studios model is one that's really good, where there's a strong central producer with Marvel Studios, but a very talent-friendly environment that normally gets the best out of different directors and actors.
Very cool insight. My wife talks all the time. She's a huge fan of the Iron Man property, and she's always saying these guys did a great job taking a chance on him, because at the time he wasn't regarded the same way as he is now, and so it really kind of rekindled his career in some ways, and certainly now he's royalty to us fans of the
Exactly.
comic fandom.
Exactly. Yeah, and he was absolutely our first choice. There's no one else that really we felt was so perfect for Tony Stark, and Robert was even more perfect than we could have thought at the time. So it was amazing for everybody.
Right. Someone actually had a question about Scooter. He said, what's it like working with someone like Scooter and his experience in the music industry? Has it brought value to what you do in this space and even doing an NFT drop?
100%. I mean, Scooter's been a personal friend for a long time, and everyone involved with Mythos at this stage of my career, I'm able to sort of create the environment and the people involved. So all the backers of Mythos have been longtime friends and supporters of this type of art, and the guys at Aspen Comics are just great guys. So we have a really good circle of people, and the other producers, nod out to Andrew Sweat, who's the president of Mythos, who did the Spider-Verse movies with Lord Miller. So we have a great team, and Scooter and his organization, I'm older than Scooter by a bit, and it's great that he and his group have their finger on the pulse of pop culture, and whether it be social media marketing, whether it be NFTs, whether it be anything going on in today's world, they really, more than any organization, any person I know, have their finger on the pulse of it. So that's fantastic, because I think the marketing of entertainment and movies has been so archaic, and it's changing with digital and social media and things like NFTs. So it's exciting to be at the forefront of that. And the energy of Scooter and his group is contagious, so it really helps us with that.
Awesome. And that kind of leads naturally to another question that was asked. What do you think will be the impact of NFTs on your industries that you work in, both entertainment and comics specifically?
I think it's going to be huge. I really believe that they're here to stay, and yeah, it's early and it's going to go through evolutions. But as we're doing with this drop, as it's merging into art and also new things like experiences, it just opens the door for such greater connection between us entertainment makers, us comic makers, the intellectual property, the brands, and the art and the fans and the collectors. And we used to only have that at Comic-Con, at the conventions, where you could meet everybody and have an amazing time talking about comics and the movies and the art. But now with something like NFTs, like with this thing, we're going to have ongoing living experiences with people that really love the brands at different levels and are supporters of it, and can feel like it's part of the fabric of their lives too. So that's part's really exciting, and that's exactly the reason why we wanted to add on those two experiences rather than just make it only about the art. We wanted to make it sort of venture our foot into that water as well, and see how the NFT world can help create a stronger connection with the collectors and the fans.
100%. Here's a fun one. All respect to Chadwick Boseman. What are your thoughts on how the Black Panther franchise should move forward? The character is iconic, but we want to respect the actor.
Okay, the thing I'll say in this, and it sounds like a canned answer, but it's not. It's sincere. Is when I sold Marvel to Disney, I decided to resign and to take a sabbatical. And the reason I felt comfortable doing that is Kevin Feige was there, and Kevin was promoted to run the studio, and he's done, as you know, amazing job. He and his team, I put full trust in as fans to figure out the best way to thread that needle. They did such an amazing job with Black Panther, and Chadwick did such an amazing job. And by the way, he was an amazing person too. I live in an apartment building with a coffee shop, and he would low key go there almost every morning to get his coffee and mingling with the crowd, and was just an amazing presence to everyone who met him. Really no ego in the way he lived his life, and even after Black Panther came out. And I think we've been so lucky with the actors that fall in love with these characters, whether it's Chris Evans or Robert Downey or Chris Hemsworth or Scarlett Johansson. So it's Kevin and the team have done an amazing job, and everything gets planned out. When we started with Iron Man, Kevin and I would at 4:30 in the morning dream of the movies that would come out 10 years later and how we connect these things together. And the same thing's going on now, obviously at Marvel, with film and the TV projects, and connecting it all together so that we all can go on this ride, and see our favorite characters, but also be, surprised with new things and intelligent, creative ways of telling these stories.
Yeah, it's amazing. To your point, people become, you guys and Marvel, after you had left, did such a good job in placing some of these characters with actors that they become synonymous with the character.
Yeah.
There was a very visceral reaction in my household to U.S. Agent. I'll tell you that. People were very fired up seeing that shield splattered in blood. That's for sure.
Yeah. And
someone
we're having fun thinking about, can't say the names yet, but the casting of Aspen.
Right.
This beautiful woman on this piece of art. Is going to be such a key casting to catch your personality and everything else. So we'll put the same love and care and consideration into that as well. Somebody that really cares about and is a big fan of this property.
Would that be casting for a real life likeness or for voice acting?
That's a good question. Still figuring that out.
Okay. I thought I had you there. I thought I had you in one.
Probably both.
Okay. Very cool. And here's a good one to end at. Have you forayed into the NFT space yet? And if not, who do you have your eyes on picking up a piece of?
Oh my God, that's a good question. I've been so enmeshed into learning about this that I haven't personally been able to collect yet. I do have members of my team that are very intrigued about this drop and want to collect it too. But I think I'm getting turned on to a lot of the newer stuff that's out there. But since I collect a lot of stuff that's been established, I think I'll be looking to supplement my comic book collection with iconic stuff from the past that becomes a unique one of one. So this is exactly, I sort of created the one of one here, in all frankness, for something that would catch my interest as a collector. And if I see the same out there for stuff that has nostalgia value for me, maybe future things from Marvel or things like that, that would be probably where I get the most excited. I'm a very focused collector in Marvel and specifically within Marvel, Iron Man, and Michael Turner art, whether it's Civil War or Fathom or Soulfire. And so right now I keep my eyes focused on those two realms to have some discipline, but I'm excited to see what happens going forward. And just this whole experience, how it's evolving.
Yeah, and we're all in this learning phase and evolving together. I tell everyone, no matter where you are in this information gathering or you've already been collecting, we are all collectively still early, right?
Yeah,
This is just
and
the
that's
tip
one
of
of
the
the
iceberg.
why the line art is in there, because a lot of people aren't as aware of that this exists. Comic collectors are, but
Right.
it's really beautiful. And I think the person who gets the 1 of 1 is going to end up appreciating this probably as much as the color cover, because it's just such a different way of seeing Michael's art and beautiful in its own separate way.
Right. I'll shoot you a DM afterwards because I know some very cool comic book artists that actually have NFT collections that might be up your alley.
Cool.
Jose Delbo, who's a legend, Mark McKenna,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
Primal Cipher, and his Encode Graphics project. So I'll shoot you a DM if nothing else to check it out because it looks cool. But they
Yeah.
do some amazing work.
No, the comic book artists are so talented, and when you're into it, it becomes addictive. It's beautiful stuff.
So once again, the drop goes live tomorrow on Makersplace, 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. Amazing opportunity for people to not only own a piece of Michael Turner's legacy and really some of the most beautiful, iconic artwork that came out of Aspen Comics, but also have some incredible, unprecedented experiences to take part of the Turnerverse and what you're going to be doing moving forward. Super excited about this drop, and thank you so much for coming on today and sharing the details with us.
No, it's my pleasure, and I'm real excited that you got turned on to Michael's stuff. I hope other people who might not be aware of it also do too. And if you're aware of Michael's stuff, I'm sure you appreciate how special this is. So happy to talk to you all about this, and have fun with this over the next couple of days.
Most definitely. And so I'm going to take us out actually with a featurette that I had seen that you guys had put together about Michael and about the drop. And afterwards, we will share the links with the community to both Aspen Comics, to your studio, but especially to the drop itself and the page that kind of talks in detail about all the different assets and the rationale behind it, so people can find it. But again, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll be looking forward to watching the drop and taking part.
Awesome. Thanks so much. What you're about to see is we just put together for this. It's about 4.5 minutes, 5 minutes long, but it's Michael's two best friends and co-founders of Aspen Comics talking about his life.
Yep. I'm going to cue that right up. And David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Michael Turner is one of the greatest independent artists that has graced the comic scene. His fan base can't be measured. It's just tremendously large.
Michael Turner was easily someone who, whether you knew him for countless years or whether you just met him for 10 seconds, he made you feel like you were one of the gang.
We owe our existence here at Aspen to his creation, and his friendship has meant a great deal to us.
Michael Turner started in comics in the early 90s. His mom had encouraged him to drop some samples and bring him to Comic-Con and show him around, and thankfully he did. He wound up getting brought on by David Wohl at Top Cow and became a background artist at the time.
He was going to just help fill in buildings and do crowd scenes, things like that for the main artists in the studio. Well, he started very, very young and very unformed, but obviously he grew exponentially from there.
Mike was an artistic sponge. He essentially took all the reference and all the information that everybody provided him from the studio and from books and from real life, and just tenfold increased his skill within not years, months.
Watching him grow as an artist was incredible. There was no boundaries to his creativity. Mike drew like Mike. There was no one else who drew that way.
Mike had such a way of holding his pencil and drawing his lines that it kept his artwork clean. A lot of people, when you write, your hand drags on the paper and sometimes smears and causes little blemishes and things like that. When Mike drew his stuff, he drew with his hand up a little bit, and it created a crispness in his artwork that very few other people could achieve.
As his talent grew, it was impossible to ignore his potential and his skill, and he was given larger and larger assignments. It started with a backup story
to doing his own mini-series book of Ballistic, and Mike got put on the book Witchblade and never looked back.
Fathom got started in 1998. It was a culmination of years of his love of the water.
In the late 90s, he went on a shark diving trip and experienced a world he had never seen before.
Because Mike had such a deep, abiding love for the ocean, he's not creating it as a character who just happens to live in the water. He understood the environment, and Fathom grew out of that.
When Fathom first debuted in 98, it looked like nothing else on the shelf.
That year, it became the biggest selling book in all of comics.
As Michael progressed, in 2000, he was diagnosed with cancer. And so once he had recovered, he was ready to do his own thing. And Aspen Comics premiered in 2003. At the same time, Michael had been secretly working on a book for DC Comics. And within the next couple years, Superman Batman debuted, Michael's Soulfire property debuted. It basically brought a whole new meaning to the word superstar.
When Mike passed away in 2008, it's hard to quantify what that loss meant to us as a company.
We've now been a company for 13 years without him, which just seems unfathomable to think about, but we strive every single day to continue his legacy and to put out properties that we hope and feel he would be proud of.
Mythos Studio in 2017 became part of Aspen Comics to develop Fathom not only as a movie, but to expand us in new media and opportunities that, may come down the line. Like this. What makes this NFT so special?
It's amazing. And besides that, it is the first ever NFT drop for Fathom. It's presenting Michael's artwork from over 20 years ago in a whole new way, which we're extremely excited about. It is verifiable. It is a unique, innovative process that we're extremely excited to be a part of and cannot wait for our Fathom NFT to drop.
One of the other unique things about this NFT is that we'll be able to offer a portion of these proceeds to one of Mike's favorite charities, as well as an ocean and conservation charity that he would have absolutely supported.
We feel that this is just the next step of that evolution with bringing NFTs to the world and bringing our properties to light in that way.